Hello everyone, Lucian here and welcome to our weekly report. I was close to saying that I hope this one isn't late as well, but that didn't quite work last time. Well, third time's the charm, right? This week has been calm and quiet, which is good. Quiet is good for the soul. Well, not total quiet, we've had a load of articles and illustrations come in, but that's just a regular run of the mill. Anyway, I'm happy to announce that we're well on our way to running out of funds this month, which means we have a nice stash of nicely illustrated articles ready for publication. Talking of articles, we started this week early with the Chimera. Well, one of the Chimeras, there are like 5 British armored projects called that. Never once to waste a good name, the Brits. Anyway, we had a look at the 1984 Chieftain-based tank destroyer. This Chimera was a School of Tank Technology study to develop a casemate armored fighting vehicle. The study was meant to find a cheap and effective way to make a self-propelled anti-tank gun on the Chieftain chassis that was to utilize new armor and technology, but still be cheaper to produce and operate than the new Challenger 1 main battle tank that was entering service. This article was written by Ed Francis and illustrated by Yaroslav Yanas, paid for with funds from our Patreon campaign. We continued with the Universal Carrier in Irish service, as one of our authors, Mark Nash, has gotten a fancy for the Irish Army. 226 of these reliable little vehicles were delivered, dwarfing in number any other armored vehicle in the Irish Army before or since. They saw no action, but remained in service until 1965 and helped train the Irish Armored Corps. This article was illustrated by J.C. Amazing Ace Davis based on work by David Bokele. We finished the week with a bang, publishing a battle article by Frankie Pullum, concentrating on a small encounter in the early days of Operation Barbarossa. But it would be better to let Frankie do the talking.
Hello, my name's Francis Pullum, and I'm a historian and author for both Tanks Encyclopedia and my own published work. I'm author of the book Fallen Giants, the combat debut of the T-35 tank, and author of the most recent article on Tanks Encyclopedia, The Battle of Verba. So, this article covers a really interesting period of history, which is June 30th, 1941, so only a few days into the German invasion of Barbarossa, the invasion of Russia. It covers a fascinating counterattack by Soviet forces. Not many people realise that in the very first days of the war, the German army exploited a gap between two Soviet armies that were stationed in Ukraine. However, the Soviets were not unaware of this and decided they needed to counterattack. And 4 mechanized corps were used in this counterattack, which lasted from the 24th of June to about June 30th, June 31st. And it was one of the bloodiest battles of the Second World War, and it's often overlooked, and in many respects it was more destructive than Kursk in tank losses. The Soviets lost almost 7,000 tanks, and the Germans lost a few hundred tanks. And the Battle of Verba is in fact the sort of climax, as it were, of the battle, the last-ditch attempt in penetrating the German forces and driving on to Brody, which was never really liberated. And what's special about this battle is it used several T-35 heavy tanks, and this is the only time we see them used en masse in battle, and it's interesting to see what actually happened to them. So go over to Tanks Encyclopedia and check out my new article.
Thank you, Frankie, and thanks to David Bokele for the illustrations. Now, do give me a moment to go check in on Lawrence and make sure we have the gaming news this time. Yep, it's here. Lawrence, you have the mic.
With War Thunder's latest patch, we see some new tanks added to the game, so we decided to bring you some facts about each one. The XM1, the Xbox exclusive, is a prototype of the M1 Abrams, represented by the Chrysler and General Motors developed vehicles in-game. The XM803 is an American-developed competitor of the already in-game MBT-70. The T-62 M1 is a modernized version of the T-62 with new ERA appliqued armor, specifically with a diesel engine, originating in 1983. The T-64 BV is an unlockable upgrade for the in-game T-64 additional ERA panels. The Chieftain Marksman is an SPAA modification of the Chieftain. The Marksman system would later be applied to the Challenger hull. Centurion Mark V AVRE entered service in 1962 to replace the Churchill AVRE. Saw service in the 1991 Gulf War. SD KFZ 221 is a 28mm squeezeball armed variant of the 221. The Leopard 2A4 is a German MBT produced from 1985 to 1992. It has an automated fire suppression system. The Type 90 Kuwamaru is a Japanese MBT that entered service in 1990 and has been designed as the equivalent of the M1 and the Leopard 2. It features a hydropneumatic suspension on the real-life vehicle, allowing it to tilt the hull on all four axes. The AMX-40 is a prototype French MBT designed primarily for the export market. We hope you find these interesting and enjoy your playing.
Thank you, Lawrence. This week we also got a question from one of our patrons. What are good tank and warfare related games and how accurate are they with historical facts? Well, there are a lot of tank-related games out there, ranging from vehicular combat with World of Tanks and War Thunder, to strategy games such as Men of War, Company of Heroes, or the original Blitzkrieg, or first-person shooters with vehicles thrown in, such as Battlefield, Squad, or Postscriptum. They are all good games with varying degrees of historical accuracy, but they all have to strike a balance between having a faithful representation of warfare and having actually fun gameplay. Basically, it depends what each gamer likes. There's no good answer to this question, although there are a couple of bad ones. Looking at you, Armored Warfare. As for the tank combat games themselves, meaning War Thunder and World of Tanks, while they both try to emulate the historical characteristics of the vehicles represented to some degree, the tanks operate in a vacuum in them. There's no infantry, there's no anti-tank artillery, and field artillery and aircraft are represented or not. Also, players usually operate individually with little coordination and face similarly uncoordinated opposition. So yeah, the historical accuracy barking dogs probably have the wrong tree when it comes to these games, but exactly what mix is best is up to each gamer. Well, that was all for this week. Until next time, don't forget to visit our website, like us on Facebook, or donate on our Patreon page. Look out and keep us in your sights.